Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another Lifestyle of Eden podcast. I'm your host, Nick Tognetti. And today, once again, I have a good friend and mentee of mine, Larry. Super glad to have you, brother. This is going to be a great conversation.
Excited as always, man. Just can't get rid of me, huh? Loving these.
That's right. As we're going down these seven pillars of disease reversal, prevention, and longevity, or should I say Lifestyle of Eden seven pillars, it's very enlightening. I've had tons of people actually been reaching out to me for quite honestly for months saying, hey, do you have any type of write-up on these things? Where can we find this, that, and the other? And I'm like, you know what? We've got to be able to produce more content on this. Thankfully, I have a whole class on it in my university, but nevertheless, having something a little bit more reachable for a broader audience and stuff like that through these, especially just where it's not just some written out thing, where it's a live conversation where you can get different perspectives and practicalities to it, I think is pretty important.
Extremely valuable, man.
But today we're going to talk about my third pillar, right? So my first one, we talked on nutrition. The second one, which to me is the most important, debatably besides the seventh, which we'll get to in a few weeks, but the second one was environmental toxicity, stress management, and community. And then this third one that we're about to be discussing is body movement. And I've actually had a lot of people ask me why I name it body movement specifically, because notice I didn't say working out,
Yeah.
right? I said specifically body movement. And a big reason for this is we like I always reference, we have to reference things off of the blue zones.
Yep.
Now, we also have to look at things from where I initially got them from, which is from the scripture. And neither of those do we ever see the enforcement of working out the way we know it today. It is still a form of working out, however, we do this body movement, but it's not in the way that we think about it, right? So when we think about working out or body movement, they're like, oh, yeah, I've got to go to the gym for an hour. What's interesting, back whenever I was a full time vegan, this was for years that I was a full time vegan, but this was I think this year specifically was 2022. And one of the vegan doctors who I still think very highly of, his content is simply incredible. But one of the things that he came out with the scientific literature was they did studies on people who did 1 hour of working out and then they went to go sit at their desk jobs for 10 hours versus people who steadily moved their body throughout the day. The people who steadily moved their body throughout the day had a radical decreased risk in all forms of heart disease and cardiovascular disease and coronary heart disease, which is the number one killer in the United States, than the people who even went and did an hour of hard circuit training or sprints or whatever it is. And that always stuck with me, where I was like, wow, dude, that is the difference between going through the motion of working out versus living movement as a lifestyle, which I thought was an interesting concept that was worthy of discussion.
Yeah, 100%. We sometimes just give out these people, hey, just hit this step goal and maybe it's 45 minutes in the morning, whatever it looks like to you. But that actual proof source and showcase, hey, even if it's 10 minutes after you do a little bit of work on the computer, get up and move around. That type of stuff adds up to that same step count goal you might have, but even
Right,
more benefits.
right. No, absolutely. You look at the blue zones, and you want to know something funny? My uncle, who, he's a very well-known and or might even say famous individual in the NPC IFBB. He was
Yep.
Mr. California multiple times. He was top four Mr. America. All of the pros know who he is. In fact, he was the one that really helped. He didn't introduce me, but he helped strengthen my relationship with Chris Cormier, who was one of the best bodybuilders to ever live. He was my trainer for Mr. Texas. Chris Cormier was.
That's so sweet.
Oh, dude, the
That's
experience was
wild.
insane, bro. I would go to LA. He lived in Palm Beach, but he would be at the Venice Gold's Gym in LA. And so I would go to LA because Corey Kaye, who's the Hollywood celebrity trainer out there, he's one of my very best friends. He's been one of my best friends for 12 years. He was my first mentor. He's the one that actually got me into bodybuilding when I was 18. We were both
Wow.
over in Louisiana, living over in LSU. And then like I have some videos on Instagram of me, him, and like Michael B. Jordan training on my old Instagram, which is still up. People can go research my old Instagram. It's still there. I just don't use it.
Did you even realize in that moment how crazy that was, or did it take you some years afterwards to be like, wow, I was with some of these high caliber people?
No, back then I remember I just started dating this girl who I was actually going to propose 2 years ago. We did it for a year and a half. And she and everybody else were just like, when I would post these videos like on Instagram or whatever. And for me, Corey's not a celebrity. He's just Corey. Like
Yeah.
his parents, he doesn't have parents. His dad is still alive, but he doesn't have a relationship with him. His mom died whenever he was about 5 or 6. So Corey would do Thanksgiving with my family. Like he would come, like holidays are like my family, my mom and dad, he calls them mom and dad. That was just normal for me, where I was like, yeah, just Corey. And then it just happened to be 10 years later that he ended up getting a serious gig in with what a Fantastic Four 2, where Michael B. Jordan was in it. He was the main actor. And they happened to just film that in Baton Rouge where we were living. And so they were looking for a trainer. They found Corey and Mike, just became like best friends. Long story short, within months, Corey goes, you know what? I'm going to just risk it for the biscuit and I'm going to try to go do Hollywood celebrity training. He did it, has a crazy story about it, was sleeping on couches, this, that, and the other, just trying to make it out there. And then now, I mean, he's walking red carpets and he's doing all these crazy things. He was actually in the movie Creed 3. Creed 3, he was one of the guys in the corner of Michael B. Jordan's corner in the boxing ring. He was the one that was holding his belts. But anyway, back then I didn't really realize it. I was just like, hey, whatever. I had some pretty sweet deals where like in college at LSU, one of my roommates, I lived with 3 Tiger girls. They were the LSU dancers. That was a freaking nightmare, bro. Don't even get me started on it. And then we'll get back to this whole body movement thing. But it kind of leads into this where I was living with them, and one of them, who I won't say her name just for the sake of maybe, although it probably wouldn't be a problem, but she ended up later being on The Bachelor. And so then she becomes super famous. So when I'm going out to LA, I'm staying with her because she would always have an extra room and Corey wouldn't. So I'd be like, hey, I'm just going to stay with so and blah, blah, blah. So I ended up getting like just random connections that happened because of situations.
Talk about community building and networking, man.
No doubt about it, bro. So the celebrity stuff started really blowing up back then. He started sending people my way, and people, I'd be like, hey, how'd you hear about me? They'd be like, oh, Corey Kaye sent me to you. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So then Corey's trained me. I've worked and helped with him a little bit on certain things years back when he was getting ready for some different movie concepts and stuff, very slightly, nothing drastic that can be added to my resume by any means. But anyway, the body movement concepts of the way that we've been typically raised in is not really what is actually proven to be the best health. And so what I was getting to was, what was funny, about 15 years ago, let's see, I'm 31 now. And so my uncle, this was probably like when I was 16. So probably about 15 years ago. I remember my uncle had a private gym, which was why I moved to California last year, was to run his gym after he died. And I'll never forget, my uncle, dude, his eating habits were so freaking bad. It was unreal. Like this dude, when you go to like any restaurant and they'll have those big containers of, it'll just be salt or it'll just be sugar. He would take one of those that's sugar, that's this big, like it's massive. He would put half of it in his tea. Half of his tea would not even be sugar stirred in. It would just be sitting at the bottom. He did that our whole life. Like I only knew my uncle as this dude that could eat whatever the heck he wanted. And as a bodybuilder, and he would lift up his shirt and his serratus would be shredded at all times. Like it would infuriate me, bro. And so I remember I would ask him, hey, Uncle Tom, back in the day, how do I get abs and this, that, and the other? He goes, the best fat burner will never be beaten by an incline walk. Or I'm sorry, the best fat burner on the market will never beat an incline walk. I'll never forget he told me that. And I remember he would say things like this 15 years ago that I literally would tell him, I'd be like, Uncle Tom, that's not true. I've got to do this intense cardio. I got to do this, that, and the other. He used to tell me also, my uncle was very big. He was adamant about only training 3 times a week. Even when he was competing, he goes, I only train 3 times a week. I do chest and shoulders. I'm sorry, I do chest and arms. I do back and shoulders. I do legs. He goes, it's the best way for growth. And me and my brothers, I'll never forget my oldest brother, Dominic, we were literally talking behind his back like, dude, Uncle Tom has lost his freaking mind. And then you come out with the science and you come out with Dorian Yates, who Dorian Yates literally says, the Olympias that I looked the best, I only trained 3 times a week.
That's my training styles, honestly.
Dude, it's insane.
Intensity.
So I never realized how right my uncle was. Like he was way ahead of his time. He really was. But the fact that an incline walk was always the best for fat burning, and then you look at the blue zones. In the blue zones, they're not doing typical workouts, right? They're doing stuff where they're getting up and down, gardening and weeding for 3 hours a day. They're like, in Sardinia, Italy, what are they doing? They're walking up the hills of their community 24/7. That is the best form of exercise, like hiking and all that type of stuff.
Active lifestyle with not even having to think about it, not even trying to. It's just part of those habits that built up into their daily regimen. Yeah.
100%. I think it's interesting. So my parents, they live in Katy, Texas. Now I live downtown in Houston, but they live in Katy and they live right outside their neighborhood. It's literally not even probably an 8-minute walk is Randall's. And so I remember when I had moved back from California, I was waiting for my high rise for my lease to open up. So I had about 6 vacant weeks. So I was like, okay, I got to go stay at my parents' house for 6 weeks. During that time, I just started going, dude, why don't I just walk to Randall's? Like, why am I driving to Randall's? Walk to Randall's and get the bags and carry them and bring them back here to the house. And so it was these small little shifts and adjustments where, like, the coffee shop, Minuti, is literally right outside the coffee shop. So, like, my dad goes there for a Bible study every Tuesday. And I'm
Mhm.
like, hey, instead of driving, why don't you just walk there and walk back? Let's just make this normal. Like, that is a normal thing. Why are we not doing that? We become so lazy where just any body movement is totally out of the question unless we categorize it as I'm mentally shifting to going to work out. But outside of that, I'm freaking lazy.
Yep, and it can be easy as in, okay, I'm gonna drive here, and then at the parking lot, I'm gonna park a little bit further away. Instead of going up the escalator, I'm gonna take the stairs or steps. It doesn't necessarily matter what the mindset is, as long as you have the habits that are gonna accumulate to that higher body movement, I think.
No, I agree 100%. This is, like I said, the fact that the statistics came out in scientific literature that one who constantly is moving throughout the day has a lower risk of heart disease than the person who goes to the gym for an hour and works out hard was simply mind blowing. And so this is where, like, for me, I'm like, hey, I don't really care. Like, whenever I tell clients, I do generally tell them have a 60-minute walk throughout your day. But I
Mhm.
think one of the best things that you can do to start out just for practical steps, like what it did for me over the last couple of years, was literally just get your phone. All of our phones have a step counter, or get whatever watch you want. I don't care. And start for 10,000 steps a day. And 10,000, if you were to go outside for 1 hour and do 1 hour walk, that's probably about 8,000, generally speaking. Like, whenever I would do a 60-minute walk, it's okay, I got a good 8K out of that. So even 1 hour walk doesn't hit that. But if you think about it in the grand scheme of, I walk Kaya 3 times a day. I do morning, I do it 12 noon every day, and then I do in the evening, and those will range. Generally, it'll be like 2 30-minute walks and then one 10 15-minute walk or whatever. I'm getting my steps in that way, but I'm also finding other ways to move. It's not discounting my workouts and things like that. I think people need to find ways to acquire more movement in their life.
Most Americans get under 4,000, I've been reading about. Even if we shoot to that 5 to 7,000 step count goal, that's going to decrease our chances of mortality, deaths, and whatnot by probably upwards of 50%. I've read several data on this. It's crazy. It
That is,
doesn't have to be like 10, 12. That's great to continuously strive for, but look where you're at and just try to do better, right? If you're stuck at that 3 to 4,000 very sedentary lifestyle, shoot for the 6,000 or shoot, don't even track the steps. Shoot for 30-minute walks.
no, that's good. You know, it's interesting too. Like, I actually don't do it. Not that I have anything against it. I just personally don't. Is a lot of my coaching friends, and I think you maybe too, they have those in place walking stepper things where you can just put it under your desk and walk while you're doing meetings.
Technology's made it so easy for this to be doable nowadays. Get if you're at, you can get that standing desk and the walking pad and still work. There's really not a ton of excuses anymore. And that stuff's super affordable, 80, $90. And once again, if it's going to add years to your life, dude, what the cost is 100% worth it.
Yeah,
Just shifting the mindset between, hey, movement truly is medicine. And just, it's not just the gym. I think that's the biggest thing we're trying to underline here is it really is a type of medicine. I like looking at older individuals. Part of the reason I think when we start to get old, that path to dying more quickly, as horrible as that sounds, happens because of isolation and just the body's not moving anymore. Like the whole like a body in motion stays in motion. I think just having things to continue to move your body is going to keep your joints and everything able to keep moving, especially as you get into those older ages.
yeah, and I think too, one of the things that we see, like in the blue zones, is most, if not all, let me see, the Sardinia might be the only blue zone that actually is different a little bit in this arena. But most, if not all, the blue zones, all of their body movement has to do with groups. So, for example, like in Loma Linda, California, they're really big on like swim classes, Marco Polo. They're what's that game? Pickleball. You know,
Yeah, that's super
doing
popular now
they're
here.
doing pickleball, all those different types of things. So you've got to find a way to make body movement too communal, because then you start to bring in my second pillar. and you naturally start to induce more laughter, and you start to realize these 7 pillars are not meant to be separate. They're meant to be a part of a lifestyle that's
Which
conducive
is
to either.
why it's a lifestyle. Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that this pillar, quite frankly, is a lot easier than I think people realize. There's so many solutions to get around it. But part of it too is just, hey, most of these people work constantly for 10 hours behind a desk. Or like we said though, get yourself those treadmills or something like that, or make it to where morning and evening. One thing I always tell people is imagine if you, like a lot of my clients, I probably have 20 marriages in my class, my practice. And so one of the things that they do at their walks is they actually do it together, at nighttime. It's a way to just get your marriage involved. It's a way to get your kids involved. Actually, one of my marriages, they just told me the other day, hey, our oldest son who's getting ready to go to college, he joins our walks every day just to spend more time with us, these different types of things. But these things don't have to be.
Chores. They don't have to be chores.
No, not at all. And like I said, even something as simple as if you're genuinely gardening 3 hours a day and you're pulling weeds out and you're getting like up and down, those different types of things are critical. I think the biggest thing that people try to do though, when it comes to working out, is they try to overcompensate for dysfunction in order to lose weight. And then they don't actually get there. And like one of the things I've noticed was, man, I've really lowered like my cardio last year and a half. I'm actually about to start picking it back up again because I used to be a boxer, but now I'm about to start working again with Brayon Goron, he's 19-0 right now, pro boxer, but we actually start next week again. But up until for the last year and a half to almost 2 years, I haven't really done any cardio. I just do walks and stuff like that. And the people that where I fix up their metabolic function to be like super pristine, they
Yep.
actually don't need cardio to get lean or stay lean. Their mitochondria function so fluently and their stress is so low, their sleep is good, hormonal balances and so forth. Is exercise was not really meant to be the dependent when it came to dropping body fat.
And those principles can be taken into high caliber athletes. I have a guy in a bodybuilding prep getting leaner than he has ever has before, just doing steps outside, list cardio, not even worrying about heart rate or burying himself in the dirt with a stairmaster or something crazy. He's able to just move the body, and that makes all these other functions better, like you're saying. And then what happens? The body reduces body fat easier.
And I think too, so here actually, so I remember in 8th grade, that was whenever I was at my fattest. I was actually so fat in 8th grade that the doctor actually prescribed me a 1 mile run after dinner every single night. I was so fat. And I remember like that summer, me and two of my friends, we walked everywhere. We probably had 20,000 steps a day. We walked freaking everywhere. And I
Mhm.
remember my dad like saying, hey, Nick, we need to start working out or exercising. And I said, Dad, I'm walking everywhere. He goes, no, and that's good, but we need to start getting your heart rate up. And he wasn't wrong, actually. And that's the reason why I think that the incline walks up hills or hiking or things of that nature are the best things, because the reality is you do need to get your heart rate up on certain concepts, but it's actually better to have your heart rate up. There's a couple different ways where you can do it steadily, like through incline walking and then decline and then going up natural hills and so forth. But the other thing that is really good, you just have to be careful with how much you do it because it can spike cortisol to an unhealthy level if it's done on a daily basis, is certain HIIT trainings,
Yep.
sprints, things of that nature. If you can add those in once a week, you actually don't need it all the time. I used to be a sprinter where I would do it 5 or 6 days a week, and it was way too much. It actually started tearing up my gut microbiome. It's why there's a statistic that says over 50% of endurance runners, not long distance, but specifically sprinters, all have IBS. And the reason being is because of what it's doing to your it's devouring your gut microbiome and it's devouring your testosterone levels. Your cortisol spikes up. Testosterone is actually lower in people who are doing long distance and sprinting.
Because
And
that
so
cortisol.
you've got to have that balance, right?
Yeah, with the hit cardio, it elevates our heart rate definitely higher. We could see 140, 150, 160 beats per minute even. But what that does is even when you're done with the cardio, I think compared to the list cardio, that heart rate will stay slightly elevated for longer periods of time. And you're going to be enabling more fat loss through longer periods of time, even with shorter time windows of the actual work ethic.
No, that's it. No, that's exactly right. And that's one of the things that I like from it is you're going to be, like you were saying, for the next 2 days, I'm going to be burning body fat off of whatever I just did. And here's the thing that it's raising, what we always talk about too, is it's raising BMR, basal metabolic rate, which obviously is the goal. Basal metabolic rate, for those who don't know, is how many calories do you burn sitting on the couch for 24 hours? And so, for example, if you take a really skinny guy, like I remember, yeah, if you take a really skinny guy who has no muscle, doesn't really work out, whatever, and you sit him on the couch for 24 hours and you test how many calories did you burn in the last 24 hours? I don't know, call it 1,000, 1,500 or whatever. Me, I don't know how much I do anymore, but I do know about a year and a half ago, I tested my basal metabolic rate. I was burning, just sitting down, BMR, I was burning over 2,300 calories. That means that to burn 2,300 calories at your basal metabolic rate, that means, bro, I have to eat a minimum of 2,300 just to maintain, essentially.
That's what I tell clients. What does that equal? More freedom. You can get away with more calories. You can get away with eating more and being able to still stay in that leaner spot. So more freedom in a way, right? You can have more of the opportunities to have more of the free meals in your mind and still stay lean.
So,
But
so
for any clients to get to that
in,
point where
in,
that base metabolic is raised.
in your opinion, what are some good ways to raise basal metabolic rate then?
For one, we use some of the flush diet, not to dive too much into nutrition, but spending some time. A lot of times people are not eating a ton. They don't have a lot of muscle mass and they're in a spot that once again they're under eating. So their maintenance calories, what their body's burning at rest is so low, like you're talking about. When we add in some of that muscle mass and when we add in some of the body movement, we're naturally burning through more calories. And if you feed yourself more and you get used to that, we can get to the spot to where, hey, when we diet down, if it took 1,800 calories to get lean before, maybe this time it takes 2,200 calories to get leaner. And then reversing out of that, now what happens? Your basal metabolic rate's higher, you have more muscle, and you're leaner. And what does that equal? More freedom.
I was gonna say that a couple of the biggest ones that I notice is, like you said, one, having more muscle. The more muscle you have, you actually have a higher basal metabolic rate. Your body
It
requires
requires more demand. Yeah, absolutely.
more energy. The second one is hit training, hit cardio.
How do you
No,
like to do your hit cardio so the audience understands? Because I kind of
yeah,
that I like to do.
I have two different ways. Now, boxing for me, like when I get on the mitts is extreme hit. So that's one thing, which I know a lot of people, but so having fun with it, you can do certain bike interval classes, like biking intervals, those will raise that thing real quick. Boxing classes, kickboxing, things of that nature. But the other two that I'm really big on too are sprints. I'll go to the field and I'll do 600-yard sprints, I'll do 650-yard sprints, and then I'll do 6 to 8 short 20-yard just jolts. But then I also really like circuit training. So I'll do, generally my circuits will be 4 or 5, generally 4 actually, like 4 things all for 30 to 45 seconds. And so it might be ball slams. Like for me, I'll do a heavy one. I'll do a 40 or 50 pound ball and just ball slams for 30 to 45 seconds. I'll do kettlebell swings. I'll go heavy. I'll go like 60 to 70 pounds. I'll do what I call jumping jack presses, where you get 2 dumbbells. For me, I would use like 15 or 20 pounds. And you're doing jumping jacks, but you're shoulder pressing like this. That will destroy you. And then the fourth one, I do what's called like burpee jumps, where you're not doing a full burpee. You stay down where your arms are in like that push-up position. And all I'm doing is bringing my legs back and forth like you would do in a burpee without ever coming up. That devours you. And then I'll do like high knees, running in place, things of that nature. But either way, it'll be like 4 of those things, which will equal like either 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, and then
Yep.
I'll rest for 4 minutes, and I'll do that 4 or 5 times, and I'll be done in 20 minutes.
So I do it a little bit differently. Once again, I tell the client you can do whatever method you like, whether it's battle ropes, jumping jacks,
Battle
incline.
ropes is good.
Yeah, whatever it might be, that's fine. Pick what you're passionate about that you enjoy doing. And what I usually tell them is, look, let's try to do 20 seconds all out effort. I don't need to worry about anything except just going as hard as you can. And then maybe 40 seconds more just catching your breath, more list cardio type methodology there.
Yeah,
What we can do is just repeat that every minute. You have a timer going. And let's say maybe we start at 10 minutes or 12 minutes or eventually 15 minutes. And then you can have multiple days of the week. But even if it's look, for today for 12 minutes, every minute we're going to do 20 seconds all out, 40 seconds more like list cardio, catch your breath, and then repeat that every minute for the 10 minutes, for the 12 minutes, for the 15 minutes. And then
yeah.
that's how I operate it.
No, that's good too. The other one that I do utilize actually for people that can't go and do outside sprints, or the outside sprints are too hard on their body, is I will do treadmill sprints where I'll do, say for like a man, I might, a younger-ish man under 50 or 45, I'll do where it's like a 6.0 incline, and I'll do 8.0 speed or 9.0 speed. And you do that for 60 seconds on and about 4 minutes off. And dude, that 60 seconds on, the good news is you're not pushing the body at a top speed, but it is a fast enough speed at an incline that it's devouring you. And so that is a really good one. And you do 4 of those. But one of the things too that I like to make sure I emphasize is I don't really recommend extreme hit cardio more than twice a week. You know, like outside of that, you can really start to damage certain things with the gut microbiome, depending on what the diet looks like, supplementation, what the rest of your hormones are looking like, what cortisol and adrenal dysfunction is looking, and all those other things. And then on the other days, I like to do really basic stuff. Let's just get our steps in. Let's, whatever it is. But I don't think that you need to do, if everything else is right, I'm not really utilizing it to just get like absolutely shredded. Even whenever I'm wanting to get somebody shredded, I utilize it, but I utilize it to make sure that I'm keeping metabolic function very high without having to do it all the time. Because if I do it twice a week, that's going to keep it high for the rest of the week if I split those things up.
Get the basic pillars intact, get those understood, and then add in some of the amplifiers. That's always the rule of thumb.
Absolutely. I think this pillar, it's a bit shorter when it comes to teaching it, but it's very revelatory. And that, for example, my mom doesn't like to go to the gym. She never has ever since I've known her. And so I remember she used to do it at different periods in her life as I've been alive, but it was more very short-lived. And it was just because it's, oh, that's what I need to do. It was, she did not enjoy it. She hated it. And especially even when I would train her, like she didn't like it. It didn't matter. So what my mom does is she goes on a lot of walks, but also my mom, she's actually, I was just about to say her age. She would kill me if I did that. So my mom, she goes in the pool and she swims and does these different things for an hour. And she has these like weights. They're like 3 pounds, 5 pounds, 8 pounds. And she's doing different weight movements while she's in the pool and stuff like that. And I'm like, hey, and I don't know if she does it anymore, but she used to do it with 5 or 6 of her girlfriends. And so it would just be like this fun time where they're just messing around and like doing this, that, and the other. And I'm like, dude, that's awesome. So it's things like that. It's just this body movement lifestyle where we need to get body movement out of the context of working out and just start thinking about, oh, you need to go to the gas station, or oh, you need to go get some coffee. I'm willing to bet you both of those things are literally in less than a mile away from you, or even a half mile. They're everywhere. Coffee
Or you
places.
can just park a little bit further away and start that habit.
Exactly.
And I try to do is just park a little bit further. Right.
Exactly. I think that's a good way. Or like you said, focusing a little bit more on taking the stairs, this, that, and the other. But one of the things that we just have to start to force our thinking into, for example, I live in downtown Houston. I have about 4 gym memberships, but one of them, Lifetime, is about 5, no, it's probably 6 blocks away. So realistically, it's like a 15, 20-minute walk. And I've never driven there. I've only walked there because I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity to get into a 20-minute walk there, a 20-minute walk back. I go, why would I not do that? And there's all these restaurants, steakhouses all around where I go, dude, if I'm ever going to go out and get some food around here or go on a date or something like that, I go, I almost feel bad getting an Uber. I'm not going to drive because parking sucks downtown, but
Yeah.
I almost feel bad getting an Uber because I'm like, dude, we can literally walk. Like, this is just basic lifestyle stuff that people complain about that I'm like, we just have to retrain our thinking as to what is considered normal.
It's not necessarily change your entire schedule. Just look at your schedule and see the areas that you could just slightly change that you're already doing. Like once again, if you're going to work and you take the elevator, just take the freaking stairs.
Right. And I think too, it's just being the example of what the normal should be. What's normal and what's optimal are 2 different things. I always tell people, if we're going to go off what's normal, 50% of kids now are pre-diabetic. So that's normal. If we want to go normal, okay, that's fine, but that's not optimal. We just have to be like more defining as to what's normal. And when you do that, your kids start to think differently about what's normal. And you start to create these generational blessings and so forth. So I just think it's people being introduced to what we should consider normal.
Yep. And then we can even get in depth with it. If you're able to have little walks after meals, that helps a ton with blood sugar, helps with digestion. All of these things can be looked at more in depth, even in our functional practices. They do above and beyond just everything we talked about too.
No, absolutely, dude. Absolutely. So yeah, this is, like I said, this is a basic one, but I think that it's going to be a beneficial one. And hopefully a relieving one, in that people realize you don't have to go to the gym to get a trainer and pay all this money and do this, that, and the other for fulfillment of this 3rd pillar of my 7 pillars of disease reversal, prevention, and longevity. So I think this is good. I think it's practical. And I think it brings a little bit of enlightenment on the area, man. So I once again, dude, I always appreciate having you on here. It's been a lot of fun, dude.
Yeah, it's an honor. Once again, we're just trying to spread that message, set a new standard for everybody to bring to their families, bring to their lives, and like you said, generations to come. That's the goal.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lifestyle of Eden family, for tuning in to another one. Stay tuned for the next episode.